Hi folks, hope you're okay. Today we're looking at the historian, mythology and the Gospels, and I'm going to read from the article that we've been looking at today. Two quotes, one from Harvey, and it says, "The tradition of Jesus' miracles has too many unusual features to be conveniently ascribed to conventional legend mongering. Moreover, many of them contain details of precise reporting which is quite unlike the usual run of legends and is difficult to explain unless it derives from some historical recollection. And the Gospels themselves show a remarkable restraint in their narratives which contrasts strangely with the delight in the miraculous for its own sake, which normally characterizes the growth of legend." End of quote. The writer of the article says, "Supernatural categories therefore cannot be rejected a priori. Instead, each claimed miracle has to be investigated on its own merits. The resurrection, which according to Paul in 1 Corinthians 15:1-8 forms the historic sine qua non of Christian faith, has to be investigated in the same way as any other punitive historical event, and the literature on that is enormous." Bloomberg writes, "If the resurrection of Jesus really happened, then none of the gospel miracles is in principle incredible. This is not because God can do anything supernatural, no matter how eccentric and arbitrary. Christian belief in God's omnipotence does not include ascribing to him the power to do that which is logically contradictory, e.g. making the legendary stone so big that he can't move it, or that which is against his nature, e.g. doing evil. But it is precisely in the way that the gospel miracles differ from so many of their counterparts in other religious and philosophical traditions that they all fit together in a consistent pattern, revealing Jesus as sent by his Father to usher the kingdom of God and make known God's will and ways on earth. This revelation in turn meshes with the main details of the rest of Christ's teaching and ministry." End of quote. The writer goes on that William Lane Craig applies the 7 factors set out by C. Ben McLeod, which historians typically use in the testing and historical hypotheses, and applies them to the resurrection. These are: the hypotheses, together with other true statements, must imply further statements describing present or observable data. 2. The hypotheses must have greater explanatory scope, that is, imply a greater variety of observable data than rival hypotheses. 3. That hypotheses must have greater explanatory power, that is, make the observable data more probable than rival hypotheses. 4. The hypothesis must be more plausible, that is, be implied by a greater variety of accepted truths, and its negation implied by fewer accepted truths than rival hypotheses. 5. The hypothesis must be less ad hoc, that is, include fewer new suppositions about the past not already implied by existing knowledge than rival hypotheses. 6. The hypothesis must be disconfirmed by fewer accepted beliefs, that is, when conjoined with accepted truths, imply fewer false statements than rival hypotheses. 7. The hypothesis must so exceed its rival in fulfilling conditions 2 and 6 that there is little chance of a rival hypothesis after further investigation exceeding it in meeting these conditions. So we'll just finish there, and I'll give my thoughts. I think that there are a couple of things there that need to be pointed out. I think there is a lack of intellectual dishonesty among skeptics concerning the nature of miracles and their investigation. For example, when you look at David Hume's criteria for understanding whether miracles took place, he came to the conclusion, even according to his own criteria, that miracles did take place, but then says, well, even though my criteria seems to confirm miracles exist, took place, I don't accept it because miracles just don't happen. So his problem wasn't the historical data, the problem was methodology, that is to say that he didn't really believe the miraculous could take place. The point is here that David Hume, when he had his criteria, there was prejudice within that criteria. One of the criteria that he stated is that unless the witnesses are educated, they could not be believed, and that is prejudicial against people of different cultural backgrounds and educational backgrounds, etc. The point that I want to make is that most skeptics don't have any criteria to look at any historical information concerning miracles or the claims of miracles. And I think that is problematic, and that it shows a tremendous weakness amongst the apologetics by the skeptical community, the atheist community, etc. There is very little willingness to engage in historical method and the analysis of miracles. Those analyses that we do have, like from Dr. Price and Dr. Richard Carrick, are often tempered with tendentious literary methodologies that are esoteric and that most people in the field, scholars in the field, don't actually apply. For example, Richard Carrier uses the Bayes theorem in his historical inquiry, and no historian, or most historians, don't use the Bayes theorem because it's subjective, even though he and some scholars try to present it as an objective methodology, because it's about the parameters that you put into your computation in order to get the information that you want in your historical inquiry using the Bayes theorem. And Price, well, he basically uses literary methods that are outdated and tries to rehash literary methods that are not applicable in terms of the analysis of the New Testament. So that's that. Okay.